Hello, everybody. This is Gynarchic Awakening. May have a couple of videos planned here today. Yeah, so I had a job interview for tomorrow. Life is funny because it's like I don't have a bicycle, and I'll get into the video now, but I don't have a bicycle, and so what I'm gonna have to do is I'm gonna have to like walk 2 hours and some change to get to a local mall just to attend a job interview. And so of course, I mean that's in case you want to know like what's going on here. I had to like cut everything down to size again, so I could look at least more presentable and less like a caveman. All right. That being said, let's move on to the main stuff. Obviously, congratulations once again to the Serious Gynarchy Group for getting 3,000 members. That's unbelievable. The rate of growth for that community is nothing short of remarkable. When I was referring to, maybe people don't know, but when I was on some other websites, there were groups I was part of where there was like 200 something members, and it would be months before there would be any additions. And that's not happening at all at this group. This group, there's constantly content being cranked out. It's really good. It's there's a lot of effort put into the things that the Gonarchists write over there. It's a great community. If you haven't looked into it yet or participated in it, I highly recommend that you do. It's definitely a good place to be if you want a community. So congratulations to them. Also, I am happy to announce that a Pennsylvania library has ordered a copy of the Pillars of Gynarchy and 150 Years of Gynarchy. Other than that, though, I went through Michigan, nothing yet on that end. I went through Texas, same thing. Although I would like to say that when I am submitting to these places, there are times when they won't tell me if the collection team improves it or not. But there are individuals, there could be librarians or people in the collection team who decide to buy them of their own accord. They just may not be able to buy it for the library due to the policies imposed upon them by the library or the state they're living in or what have you. So it doesn't mean that they're not interested in the content. They just might not have the power to do anything about it as far as getting the books into the library. But that doesn't mean that books are not finding their way into the hands of librarians, people on collection staffs, and so on and so forth. And also people in the circulation teams. That being said, I do have a topic for today. Actually, I had two of them, and I'm a bit of a toss-up as to which one I go into. I think I'm going to do this one. It's been a long time coming. This is seeking out rich benefactors to aid in the creation of an in-person Gynarchic community. There's a little story to go with this. So I was on Twitter, and I was talking with some other people who are of like mind and spirit. These are kindred spirits. We were talking about what kind of effective what means would be the most effective in establishing an in-person Gynarchic community. What would be the best way to go about doing this? And something came up during these talks. And there were a few of them, and of course, naturally, the subject of financial assistance entered its way into the conversation. And the reason for this is quite simple. It's because unless somebody is willing to interject on your behalf and alleviate some of the financial burden, the burden goes to individuals, and many individuals would likely not want to pay the price that would be required for the kind of relocation that we had in mind. And so there were talks about, possibly getting community, like whether either it's gated communities or just communities in general. But the rich benefactor idea is something that I have as I've aged and grown older and thought more about, I actually have begun to oppose this concept more and more. And the reasons for it are pretty complex. But first, I would like to ask before I get into my reasons why I don't think that this is a good idea. Uh, I just want to say to ask you, do you think that seeking out a rich benefactor? Now, notice I'm not saying Gynarchist benefactor. It's one thing if you make yourself rich, like if you come up with your own ideas for your own businesses, your sports or whatever, that's your thing. But I'm talking about seeking out a rich benefactor who may not even have the same values as you, but is willing to put it in. Um, is that do you think that that's a good idea? Do you think that that's a good way to go about establishing the creation of these communities? I don't think that this is not a concept that I can readily accept and support any longer. It sounds very enticing and alluring. However, the longer time went on, the more I looked back at this and went, I'm not saying it couldn't work. It's always possible you can find somebody who could fund that community, who could get things going. I'm not saying that's outside of the realm of possibility. But considering the way that wealthy people behave in our world today, the average person is selfish. But wealthy people, it's like putting selfishness on steroids. The lack of empathy and compassion that many of these billionaires and other wealthy individuals regularly express and demonstrate to the public is frankly disturbing. I'm not going to go into any specific names, but if you've been paying attention to the news, to some of the things that these people have been saying, you know the individuals that I am referring to. And by the way, I want to state for the record that I know not all of them are like that. It's just that the worst of the worst of the worst suck up the oxygen in the room. And the other people, as far as I'm concerned, they don't do enough to basically call them out and say, hey, you're a person with influence. You shouldn't be talking like this. You shouldn't be behaving like this. You shouldn't be acting like this. You should be setting an example for other people instead of going this far. But that doesn't happen nearly enough. And so we're stuck with the first problem. The first problem that I have is their selfishness. To me, part of being in a community is thinking about the other person, thinking about what that individual might need or require in order to live a happy existence or a fulfilled life. If you are thinking in a certain way to where, this is going to be part of my next video that I'm going to do. It's going to be on individualistic mindsets versus community mindsets. And sort of the way that these two mindsets can both benefit and harm our communities. But in this case, if you are giving your power, if you're placing all of the power and you're hinging all of the success on your community based on what this rich benefactor does, they could just be manipulating you or using you in order to get something that they want. Maybe they just want that land. Maybe they you're just the means by which to get it, and they'll work with you in the meantime, but they could fuck you over later on, or stop caring about you, or get bored with you and find something else to amuse themselves. The idea that somebody would just, like a rich person of all people, would just do something out of the kindness of their hearts does seem to be silly, because they're rich people. They're going to have a business mindset. They're first and foremost, they want to make money. They want to net a profit. I don't think that a selfish, especially a very egotistical, selfish mind is going to be suitable to forming a long-lasting community of people. Whether that's a separatist community where only women are there and they only need men for the most essential stuff, or if that's an in-person, an in-person Gynarchic community that has both men and women in it who coexist together. I just do not see Um, I just don't see how those individuals as a group are going to be able to overcome their nature in order to behave not just behave, but to think more community minded than individual minded. So I do think that that's like a major red flag to me. The second thing that I know it's going to sound fucked up to say, but I have to say it just for the sake of saying it. If something happens to that person and they die, that can really, really screw things up. Let's say they're in the process of taking care of something, or they're about to get something, and then they die, they have a heart attack or whatever, or they pass away, and somebody like one of their children or somebody in their family inherits their wealth, and or the business, and they don't really give a fuck about you. They don't have the same interest that you do. That's another problem. It's not just the rich benefactor you have to worry about. What about their family? Are their family going to maintain the same relationship with you that the benefactor has? I don't like that. The third thing that I don't like about the idea of a rich benefactor is that whenever you do have a rich benefactor involved in something, people are going to zone in on it. And I don't know how I feel about so much attention being shown on people who may not even want it. Like if you are a separatist community of, let's say you're forming a separatist community of women and girls, you're victims of sexual assault, of battery, of rape, and you just want the men to get the fuck away from you. You get a rich benefactor to fund all that, but on the flip side, that rich benefactor, if they're of a sufficient amount of influence, like they're in the billionaire bracket or whatever, or they own a big business, they're in the public eye. And because you're associated with them, that means that you could end up in the public eye too. And that may be contrary to what some individuals want. Some individuals may not want to be in the public eye because they don't want to be harassed or bothered by people, and many of the harassers will be men. So if you want to separate yourself from these individuals, and you want to form a community, forming a community by associating with somebody who already has, maybe the paparazzi bothering them, maybe they've got reporters always trying to get some kind of a story. They're being followed around all the time. There's people taking pictures of them, all this other shit. If they find out, and if they find out about your relationship with this individual, what kind of consequences are we looking at for that community? What will the consequences be, and is that something that can be weathered? Now, I know that every community is different. Some communities are like, well, we don't give a fuck. We want the world to know, and the world can go fuck itself if it doesn't like it. I understand there's that mentality out there, but I also know that not everybody wants to announce to the world that they're forming a new community. Some of them would rather want to do it peacefully, quietly, and to find other people and just live peacefully and quietly, and don't want any of the excess drama, don't want to be in the public spotlight, and don't feel like they have to actively make a statement or make any statement about their lifestyle and the way that they live and the way they think other people ought to live. So I think that right there is a third concern. My fourth concern about this is something that I didn't really think of it at the start, but while I was while I was explaining and going through the reasoning, one other one popped up, and this sort of bothered me, and it's the idea of leveraging your influence in a way to where you can extract labor from other people. So here's the thing. If you enter into a partnership where you do a whole, if you do this for me, I'll do that for you kind of deal, as long as that partnership and the conditions of the partnership, as long as those are honored from beginning to end, as long as the partnership is respected, I don't think there's any problem, at least as far as your terms, your willingness to carry through them, and actually carrying out the terms. I've got no problem with people honoring a business contract. However, if one person decides that they want to, stop being nice and start leveraging more of their influence to gain control over other people's lives, what's to stop them from doing stuff like, well, hey, look, you need to do this for me or that for me, or hey, maybe that community will just go away, or maybe I'll just withdraw my support. That's another thing that I think is really disturbing is if they can give it to you, they can take it away. Human beings change. So, what people can be nice today and mean tomorrow. They can be tolerant today and intolerant the next. You have no way of knowing for sure how someone is going to evolve and who they're turning into. So they might seem nice to you, they might seem okay to you, but that could all just be an act. That could just be part of their business routine. Putting on a smile, cracking a few jokes, making you laugh. And then, of course, when they see that you are in not as strong of a position as they are, in other words, you're the poor person, you're the one who is vulnerable, they can put a lot more pressure on you than you can put on them in that kind of circumstance. Because if you're just a small community of people relying on this individual, and this person decides, okay, you know what, I'm just going to cut my losses, or I just don't like you people anymore, or you're not, you're not, caving into my demands, not compromising. However they want to frame it in their mind. That's it. That no more aid. Community falls apart, and then you start from ground zero again. I feel like it's a very risky venture to seek out a rich benefactor in this instance, because they can do that. They can if they want. They don't have to do it officially, but they could fuck with you like that. They could say, hey, do the labor, do this for me, and I'll get off your back, and then keep leaning and exploiting, or just one day they're just, or, and this is the worst thing that could happen. A fifth thing is they might actually like you. They might even be kind to you. But if enough people put pressure on them economically to sever their relationship with you, they might actually do that. Boycotts are very, very famous. There was a while back, there was some kind of beer commercial. I don't know what kind of individual it was. I think it was like a trans person or something. And all of a sudden there was like this boycott of this particular product because they did like one or a few commercials with the person dancing. And I guess some of the country lost their damn mind. I didn't get it. I don't fucking care about it, to be honest. It's just a person dancing to me. But clearly there was something going on. They didn't like it. And so they started boycotting the damn thing. So if they find out about your community, and then, a few organizations team up and get together and start boycotting this rich benefactor's business, the next thing you know, they could completely sever ties, just cut off at the ankles and say, look, I love you guys. I want to continue to support the community, but I can't because my business is taking a hit and I can't afford this anymore. Could very easily happen. Because at the end of the day, do they care more about you or their bottom dollar? And if they do, then they could care about both things, but which do they care about more? So I do have concerns about rich benefactors. My personal opinion is I think that the communities that will be the strongest and the most long lasting are the ones that are built at the grassroots, the ones that are built in your own community, the ones where you form your own group or you farm similar minded people of the same class, whether that's poor. Like if you're a bunch of rich people in Gynarchists, there you go. But if you're a bunch of poor people, middle class Gynarchists, then you could do the same thing. My point is, I think that I believe that it's important that when you talk about in-person Gynarchic communities to have a discussion about the role that class, your economic class, plays when it comes to your associations, because two poor people are on more of an even playing field than a rich person is versus a poor person. And the amount of things that a rich person can do is far greater than that of a poor person. And that can be a problem, especially if this person's not like a hardcore Gynarchist, which I seriously doubt many are. I've heard people like Robert Downey Jr. There's something about an interview related to Oppenheimer. He said he thinks there should be a matriarchy. You can go look this stuff up if you don't believe me. He actually said it. But I don't think that just because you think something, that doesn't make you a hardcore Gynarchist. There's a difference. Like, I don't think he's regularly espousing that. I think it was just a thought he had at the time. I could be totally wrong, and maybe I am. But these are the concerns I have. If you do feel the way I do, are there any other concerns you had that maybe I didn't mention in this about about like having a rich benefactor? Because I don't deny the potential benefits, but I do think that if people, like say a bunch of poor people in a community formed, if they formed an in-person Gynarchic community, I think it would be a lot stronger and it would last a hell of a lot longer than this wrench benefactor stuff. I just don't feel like it would be worth it unless that person is committed all the way. Anyways, I hope everyone has a great day. I think I'm going to go on a walk. Please take care, everybody, and peace out.